Hi, welcome back. So, the topic, international business, is Chapter 7 in foreign direct investment. And from here on out, when we talk about foreign direct investment, you may hear me use the acronym FDI, foreign direct investment. And in fact, if you will, let me take, I forgot I wanted to do this. I wanted to take the textbook and see what the definition of FDI is. So stay with me just a second. Chapter 7, foreign direct investment. All right, do we have a, here we go, very first sentence of the chapter. Foreign direct investment occurs when a firm invests directly in the facilities to produce or market a product in a foreign country. It's pretty simple, all right. Invest directly means that we're going to take capital, we're going to take money, and we're going to invest it in another country. Heretofore, particularly the last two chapters, was the trade theory and the trade policy. We were focused on trade. We were focused on sending our products or services to other countries, or having them send their products or services to us. Now we're sending them something that is much more, if you will, long-lasting, much more permanent than, for instance, buying a car or a t-shirt or something like that. We're investing in another country. And to kind of get to something in the middle of the chapter, there are two ways of doing this. One is called a greenfield investment, where I start a brand new operation. I'll give you some examples in a little bit, but just imagine if I were to go to another country, and let's take an example like cars. If I were to build a brand new factory, or I know we had the example had to do with in Vietnam. Remember we talked about whether Vietnam should join the WTO or not. And one of the advantages for Vietnam to join the WTO is that it became a more attractive place to invest. Even though the WTO is about trade, just setting up some trade rules and, if you will, kind of having a good legal, political, economic infrastructure within Vietnam also gives investors a little more confidence about investing in that country. And so the example was given in the article about Intel was investing something like $300 million to build a factory in Vietnam. So there's no current factory to buy, so you got to build one from the ground up. So greenfield sounds like putting a seed in the ground and you're growing it brand new. The other kind of foreign direct investment is a merger or an acquisition. So I find a partner company in another country and I decide I'm going to buy them. And here's where I'm going to use an example, and I've got the link on Blackboard. And so it's a local company, and that's why I kind of like using it, even though it's about 4 years old, June 28, 2011. But it focuses on McCormick. McCormick Incorporated has agreed to acquire Polish spice and seasoning maker Camus for $291 million, adding to a string of international expansion moves for the company. So McCormick has decided to go into Poland and buy an existing spice company, very similar to what InBev, the Belgian brewing company, which had brewing companies all over the world. They came to the United States and decided to buy Anheuser-Busch. Now, sometimes it's hard to tell a merger from an acquisition. A merger is a real marriage, two companies coming together more or less as equals. But most of the time, there's a, if you will, a dominant partner. There's ExxonMobil, or actually, although I think Anheuser-Busch, it's called AB InBev, but InBev really calls the shots. I think there's one or two former Anheuser-Busch executives that are sitting on the new board of directors. That's really where most of the FDI is mergers and acquisitions. A company goes into another country and acquires an existing company. I'm not going to ask you too many questions when it comes to it later. Part of it is our book is out of date. I've already mentioned. So the statistics themselves, the concepts are still okay, but the statistics are out of date. This book was, I think, probably 2009, 2010, something like that. But please note that, and this is pretty simple, we can talk about the flow of foreign direct investment. So this can be an inflow into your country or an outflow out of your country. So for the United States, if we have InBev investing in Anheuser-Busch, or we have Mercedes building a car factory in Alabama, those are foreign direct investment inflows for the United States, but there are also outflows. When McCormick buys a spice company in Poland or in India, those are outflows for the United States. Inflows and outflows are measured over a period of time. So it's, if you will, it's kind of like looking at your bank account or a cash flow statement, what's going in and what's coming out. The stock of FDI is, if you will, an inventory. It's kind of like a balance sheet of FDI. Where's all the investments that occur outside the country, and where are all the investments that are coming inside the country? On Blackboard, I'll give you some pages. There are a few sections of Chapter 7 that I will put off limits. FDI, and this is something I want you to pay attention to, and I'll touch on this briefly here. FDI stands in contrast to two other major, if you will, strategies to get involved in foreign markets. And you could think about this. I'm going to use the example of McCormick. So McCormick all of a sudden saw a market opportunity in Poland and also in Eastern Europe generally. They said, we ought to be in Eastern Europe. People there, they use spices, they use condiments, and we think we can take advantage of of the market opportunities that are there. And as a matter of fact, we can probably do things more efficiently than some of these existing companies. So we've got some natural advantages that work for us. So McCormick takes a look at it, and they decide that FDI, foreign direct investment, is the way to go. Now, they could have exported to Poland. They could have taken products that they develop here in the United States, that they make in the United States, that they package in the United States. I mean, it'd be possible to put a wrapper around a jar of spices and ship it to Poland. The wrapper's printed in Polish. That's not too hard to do. But that's one way of entering a foreign market, is through exporting. And a second way of entering a foreign market is through licensing. Foreign direct investment has some advantages and it has some disadvantages compared to both of those. When it comes to exporting, there are two main disadvantages to exporting that FDI, if you will, is more favorable against. And you might think about the disadvantages of export as the two T's. First T is transportation costs. If I make these products here in Hunt Valley and then I export them to Poland, I got to pay to ship them there. The second T is tariffs. Maybe the Polish government has tariffs on imported condiments, imported spices, something like that, or other kinds of trade barriers. Doesn't have to be tariffs, but that's a good way of thinking about it. Tariffs and transportation costs are the two biggest impediments when it comes to exporting, and FDI gets around all that. If I make my spices there, I don't have to worry about trade barriers, I don't have to worry about tariffs, and I don't have to worry about transportation costs. Licensing is something else, and it gets a little complicated, but here's a simple example. I could find a Polish spice company, if I'm McCormick, and tell them, listen, I've got some good recipes for you. I've got some great spices that we make here in the United States. We think that your customers will like them. We'll give you the recipe and allow you the exclusive right to distribute this product, to make it and then distribute it. And what we expect in return is a percentage of the profits. It's a little bit, not exactly, a little bit like franchising. I got the model. I'm going to sell you the model. You're going to give me a percentage of the action. I get around the trade barriers. I get around the transportation costs. But you can probably start to imagine what some of the problems are. With licensing, we get kind of two major problems. I can't put them with the same letters. Maybe there's a couple that exist, but I'm not quite sure. The first one is C, control, and particularly control in some very specific ways. Production, quality, material control, sales or marketing control. Once I find a foreign partner, let's say in Poland or India, I may have contractual standards about saying, listen, you got to do it this way, you got to do it this way, you got to do it this way. But when it really comes down on the ground, are they going to follow through? Are they going to make mistakes? Are they going to take shortcuts? Either because they're dishonest or because they don't know what they're doing quite as well. They don't have the systems to back it up. So marketing, production, quality control, just making sure everything happens the way we want them to, things that happen up to our standards in the United States, or at least from the parent company point of view. That's a key thing. And the other, of course, is a loss of intellectual property. If I have a recipe and it's what is it, the secret recipe, the secret sauce in McDonald's Big Mac or something like that. If I've got a recipe for a particular kind of condiment, spices, something like that, and I give it to a Polish company, are they going to be able to protect it? So there's some definite advantages that FDI has over these two other alternatives. Now I'm at the end of my allotted time, but we'll work a little bit more about some of the particularly greenfield versus mergers and acquisitions, and remember to look for the sections that are going to be off limits or I won't test you on. So that's chapter 7.